All right, everyone, settle down. I have an announcement for you today. The hum of conversation died instantly. Mr. Kiros's class was quick to quiet down, partly out of respect but mostly out of curiosity. Their instructor rarely made announcements before lessons unless it was something truly significant. Standing at the front of the class was Mr. Kiros, a towering alien over 8 feet tall. Though his forward-facing eyes suggested a predator, his species were surprisingly classified as prey. 2 tall, branched antlers crowned his head, and his long limbs ended in delicate 3-fingered hands with a single thumb. Hooves echoed lightly against the floor as he paced with graceful steps. "As I'm sure you're all aware," he began, his voice calm, yet carrying an undertone of anticipation. "A new species has recently joined the Galactic Council. They call themselves humans." The class erupted into a flurry of whispers. "Are they really that dangerous? I heard they eat meat, raw sometimes. My cousin said one human could lift a whole hover car." Mr. Kiros raised a hand and silence returned. "Yes, the rumors you've heard are not without foundation," he said carefully. "From what we know, humans hail from a planet classified as a full-spectrum Deathworld." A soft gasp moved through the classroom. Even Alia, a Pyrox and the only known carnivore in class, looked intrigued. Most other species had evolved on serene, stable worlds, lush with flora, few predators, and minimal geological activity. Deathworlds, on the other hand, were rare, hostile planets considered incompatible with sentient life. Athalia, a quiet student with pale violet scales and bioluminescent markings, slowly raised her hand. "Mr. Kiros, is it true what they say? That humans evolved on a planet filled with death? That they survived it?" Mr. Kiros gave a solemn nod. "Indeed. Humans are, as far as we know, the only sentient species ever discovered to emerge from a planet that qualifies for all 4 categories of a death world: predators, natural disasters, toxic plant life, and extreme climate fluctuations." The room went silent again, the weight of that revelation pressing on every student like an invisible force. "And that," Mr. Kiros continued, "is precisely why I bring this up today. Starting this cycle, a small group of humans will be attending our institute." A wave of unease rippled through the class. Eyes widened. Desks creaked as students instinctively leaned away from each other, mentally picturing the terrifying Deathworlders that would soon sit among them. "One of them," Mr. Kiros added, clearing his throat, "will be joining this class." A deafening silence followed. Even Alia, often the subject of unease herself due to her carnivorous heritage, looked momentarily stunned. Desks around her were always empty, as most students feared she might revert to instinct. But now, for the first time, she wasn't the one they feared the most. Mr. Kiros glanced at the clock. "Since this is a significant moment for both our class and the academy, you are granted 30 minutes of free time before your new classmate arrives. Remain in the classroom. No loud noise, no leaving without permission, and no dramatics." Students murmured quietly again, some speculating wildly about what their new human classmate would look like or whether they would attack someone on sight. Even Mr. Kiros felt a knot in his stomach. He had never seen a human himself. He only knew what the official reports said, and even those were scarce. Alia slowly approached his desk. She rarely asked questions, but her eyes were locked on him with genuine curiosity. "Sir," she said softly, "do you know anything else about them? What they eat? How they act?" Mr. Kiros exhaled through his nostrils, antlers twitching slightly. "In truth, Alia, I know very little. I haven't met one. We've all heard stories. Some say they're omnivores. Some say they're unnaturally strong. But I'd caution against using the term Deathworlder in front of them. It might be offensive." Alia tilted her head. "Do you believe the rumors?" That they eat both plants and meat? That they could overpower any sentient species? He hesitated. The omnivore part? Unlikely. Most species evolve to specialize. Either they consume plants or prey. Balanced ecosystems that support both in large quantities are exceedingly rare. He paused. Then again, he added quietly, they did evolve on a death world. Just then there was a knock at the door. Every voice died in an instant. The classroom froze. Even Mr. Kiros stopped mid-thought, eyes locked on the door as it slowly opened. The headmaster stepped inside, followed by a figure none of them had ever seen before. Tall, around 6 feet, 2 eyes set on the front of the face, a nose, a mouth, hair only on the top of the head, skin with no scales, fur or bioluminescence, 2 hands, each with 4 fingers and a thumb. Muscular, balanced, alert. Mr. Kiros, Alia, and every other student could feel it. Predator. Greetings, Mr. Kiros, the headmaster said. This is your new student, Diana, from the planet Earth. Mr. Kiros tried to maintain his composure, though the tension in the room was thick enough to slice with a plasma cutter. He gave a polite nod and motioned toward the center of the classroom. Welcome, Diana. I'm Mr. Kiros, your instructor for Galactic History and Integration. Please, introduce yourself to the class. Diana stepped forward with calm confidence. Her voice, when she spoke, was smooth and composed, almost melodic. Surprisingly soothing for a creature whose presence had just turned an entire classroom of aliens into statues. Hello, everyone, she said with a slight smile. My name is Diana. I'm a human from Earth, 3rd planet in the Sol system. I'm 17 Earth years old and I guess you'd refer to me as female. The classroom remained eerily quiet. Some students stared, others looked anywhere but directly at her. Alia, however, was locked in, watching Diana's every movement, not with fear but with a predator's curiosity. She was studying Diana the same way one might study a rival apex creature. Diana didn't seem to mind. She'd dealt with plenty of stares before, but this was different. These weren't stares of judgment or attraction. They were stares of primal, unfiltered fear. Mr. Kiros cleared his throat. I'm sure you all have questions for Diana, but we will respect her comfort. Diana, would you be willing to answer a few inquiries from your classmates? She nodded, unbothered. Sure, I expected questions. A timid-looking student raised a hand, trembling slightly. Your species, are you carnivores or herbivores? Actually, Diana replied with a slight tilt of her head, humans are omnivores. We eat both plants and meat. Our digestive systems are designed to handle both, and we can even survive on restricted diets if necessary. The room went dead silent again. Mr. Kiros, stunned, blinked slowly. But that's impossible, he muttered aloud. There are no known sentient omnivores. A world doesn't typically produce both resources in sustainable quantities for such evolution. Diana furrowed her brow. You guys don't have farming or animal husbandry? Humans have been hunting, gathering, and growing food since before we had written language. Most wild species we used to compete with are now extinct or preserved in controlled environments. Another student whispered, So your world is predator class. Mr. Kiros stepped in to explain. Death worlds are categorized by the nature of their hostility. There are 4 primary classifications: predator class, toxin class, climate class, and disaster class. Most death worlds, extremely rare as they are, qualify for only 1, perhaps 2, categories. He looked to Diana. Earth is predator class, then? Diana hesitated, eyes scanning the classroom. Actually, it checks all 4. The silence that followed was different this time. It wasn't just fear. It was disbelief. Mr. Kiros's jaw tensed. Several students turned pale. One dropped their stylus. You're telling me, Mr. Kiros said slowly, that your homeworld has all classifications of lethal environmental threats? Diana gave a small, apologetic shrug. Yeah, predators, poisonous plants, fluctuating temperatures, earthquakes, hurricanes, tornadoes, volcanoes, you name it. Mr. Kiros sat down, gently placing his data pad on the desk as though afraid he might drop it. This changes everything, he murmured. The headmaster, who had remained silently amused throughout the entire exchange, finally spoke. Mr. Kiros, I'll leave you to your lesson. Diana, best of luck. And with that, he stepped out, leaving the stunned classroom in Diana's hands. After a few moments, Mr. Kiros managed to collect himself. Well then, since we clearly have much to learn, let's do something a bit unconventional. He turned to Diana. Would you be willing to assist me in planning our next lesson on Earth? Diana raised an eyebrow but smiled. Sure, I'd love to help. I'm used to explaining Earth stuff to confused people. Mr. Kiros gave a slow, appreciative nod. Excellent. For now, everyone, please submit your pending assignments by end of cycle. We'll resume lessons next rotation. The bell rang moments later, signaling the end of the academic cycle. Students packed up quickly, some stealing quick glances at Diana, others still wide-eyed in disbelief. Alia lingered in the back, watching Diana closely as she exited the room. Excuse me, Diana, Mr. Kiros called before she left. Would you mind staying a moment? She turned, curious. Sure. When the room was empty, Mr. Kiros let out a deep sigh. He looked exhausted, not physically, but intellectually. I must admit, I know next to nothing about your kind, he said. I was hoping you could assist me in understanding your people before I attempt to teach others. Diana smiled and pulled out the school-issued tablet. Then we'll start at the beginning. Diana stepped into her dorm and immediately felt the difference. Gravity simulators returning to human standard settings, said a calm, computerized voice. Suddenly, her body felt right. Not floaty, not light and awkward like it had throughout the school. Earth gravity, heavy, grounding, familiar. She bounced once on her heels and grinned. Yep, that's home. Just as she was adjusting her posture, a familiar voice called out from the kitchen. Well, look who finally showed up. Diana turned to see another human, a tall guy with messy hair and a bag of chips in his hand. Tyler, she said with a smile. You're here. Damn right. When I heard we were sharing a dorm, I thought the admin system glitched. Nope, just the Galactic Council being lazy, Diana replied. Rather than vetting individual students, they just dragged our entire Earth class across the galaxy. Tyler chuckled. Makes sense. Easier than figuring out who wouldn't punch a professor. Diana walked past the couch and flopped into it. The furniture was clearly imported, Earth labels still stuck to the sides. So, Tyler asked, sitting across from her, how was your first day? Oh, you know. Diana shrugged. Explained omnivores to a room full of terrified herbivores. Informed them that Earth is a quadruple-class death world. Made my teacher question the laws of biology. The usual. Tyler laughed. Caleb said his gym teacher fainted when he mentioned World War I, and don't get me started on the lunch lady meltdown when Jen asked for a steak. I knew it was going to be like this, Diana said, stretching. They don't even cook their food here. I tried to explain seasoning, and someone thought I was talking about ritual magic. Tyler leaned back, a smug smile on his face. Well, they did give us internet. I don't know how, but I'm not complaining. Thank God, Diana muttered. I was 2 more alien salads away from losing it. The two sat in comfortable silence for a moment. You notice how light everything feels out there? Tyler asked. I could probably bench press the gym building if I tried. Gravity's like a joke here, Diana agreed. I'm pretty sure my water bottle could be used as a weapon in this place. There was a pause. We're basically demons to them, huh? Tyler said with a grin. Diana snorted. Yup, demons with protein shakes. Just then, a new voice echoed from down the hall. That you, Diana? Another student stepped out from a bedroom, Brody, tall and broad-shouldered, still in his training gear. Hey, Diana greeted. Word travels fast, Brody said. Heard you gave the history teacher a mental breakdown. Gave him truth, she corrected. Well, Tyler added, he's going to need a therapist after reading the files we gave him. Diana stood up and retrieved her tablet from her bag. Speaking of which, I got copies of all their species' histories. You guys need to see this. They've never had a world war, never had a mass extinction they caused. Hell, most of them unified before discovering electricity. The room went quiet again. Man, Brody muttered. We really are the freaks. No, Diana said, voice steady. We're survivors. There's a difference. Tyler tossed a pillow at her. All right, Miss Philosophical, you ready for gym class tomorrow? I don't know, she said with a smirk. You ready to get left in my dust again? You wish, Tyler grinned. But seriously, let's make a pact. We represent Earth now. Might as well give them something to remember. Diana extended her hand. Deal. They shook on it. Meanwhile, in another wing of the academy, Mr. Kiros was staring at his tablet, wide-eyed. The files Diana had transferred to him were still open. Earth's natural disasters, war history, ancient civilizations, biological studies. He had paused halfway through a report on volcanoes, gigantic mountains that spewed molten rock from beneath the planet's crust. This can't be real, he whispered. A soft knock on the door broke his trance. The headmaster stepped in. Still studying? I've read about tornadoes, earthquakes, and predatory wildlife the size of small ships, Mr. Kiros said numbly. And I'm still in the natural disaster section. I haven't even reached warfare. The headmaster nodded solemnly. When I read the part about humans eating capsaicin, I had to double-check the system. It's a weaponized compound in every other species. Mr. Kiros placed his face in his hands. They use it to flavor food. The headmaster patted his shoulder. You'll survive, old friend. Hopefully. Hopefully, Mr. Kiros groaned. The headmaster chuckled and exited the room, leaving behind a very overwhelmed history teacher. The gymnasium was quiet. Too quiet. Mr. Kokar, the physical education instructor and another member of the Allen species, stood at the front of the room. His antlers were smaller and broader than Mr. Kiros's, and his stocky build hinted at a life of intense training. He scanned the group of students lined up before him, dozens of alien youths from across the Galactic Council. His sharp eyes landed on the two unfamiliar figures standing at the back of the line. You must be the humans. Diana and Tyler nodded in unison. Mr. Kokar squinted at them. Let me make one thing clear. In my class, everyone starts equal. I don't care what planet you crawled out of. If you want to impress me, you earn it. Understood? Yes, coach, they said. The other students gave each other nervous glances. Rumors about humans had already spread like wildfire, that they were faster, stronger, scarier. And now, two of them were standing in their gym, stretching casually like this was no big deal. All right, warm-up run, Mr. Kokar barked. 1 lap around the gym. The collective groan was almost musical. 1 lap here was a long circuit, usually took 5 minutes for the average student. Humans at the back, he added. Let's see if you can catch up. Diana and Tyler glanced at each other and smirked. Game on, Tyler whispered. The whistle blew. Within seconds, the humans blasted off the line like cannonballs. Diana surged forward, overtaking 3 students before the rest had even taken their second stride. Tyler wasn't far behind, keeping pace with her like a shadow. By the time the majority had made it a quarter of the way, Diana and Tyler had already completed the full lap. Done, Diana said, her voice steady. She barely broke a sweat. Mr. Kokar's jaw fell open. What? That's not possible. We get that a lot, Tyler added, casually adjusting his wristband. The rest of the class stared, dumbfounded. It wasn't just that the humans were fast. They were efficient. Their strides were powerful, calculated, their balance perfect, their posture aggressive but controlled. It was like watching predatory grace in motion. Mr. Kokar tried to recover. All right, next, push-ups. As many as you can in 2 minutes. Let's see what you've got. 2 minutes later, Diana had completed 162 push-ups. Tyler did 174. Several students had collapsed after 20. Next came sit-ups, then pull-ups, then a high-gravity weight test. Every single challenge, every single thing thrown at them, was crushed. At one point, Diana casually lifted the heaviest training weight in the room, something Mr. Kokar once boasted only he could lift under simulated gravity. Tyler added to the insult by spinning it on one finger. By the time the class ended, Diana and Tyler were surrounded by classmates too afraid to speak and a gym instructor questioning his career choices. As they grabbed their water bottles, Diana leaned over to Tyler. I think we broke them. We definitely broke them, Tyler replied, grinning. Later that cycle, Mr. Kiros sat at his desk, still reading the Earth history files Diana had provided. He'd reached the chapter on the industrial age, the wars, the revolutions, the inventions, the mistakes. And yet, through all of it, humans survived. No, more than survived. They dominated. There was something terrifyingly beautiful about that resilience. Just then, a message alert popped up on his datapad. From Headmaster Solon. Subject, urgent staff meeting. Human Affairs Division time. Immediate. Mr. Kiros sighed. Of course. He grabbed his pad and headed out. Meanwhile, back at the dorm, Diana stood by the window, staring out at the alien skyline of the Academy world. The building shimmered with strange light, floating calmly beneath stars she didn't recognize. They fear us, she said softly. Tyler joined her at the window, arms crossed. Let them. Diana looked at him, expression unreadable. We're not monsters, Ty. No, he agreed. We're just humans, and maybe that's scary enough. She didn't reply. The silence between them wasn't uncomfortable. It was loaded. With memories of the world they came from, with dreams they hadn't dared speak out loud, with the weight of representing an entire planet full of contradictions. Earth was chaos, Earth was life, Earth was war, Earth was hope, and now Earth was here. The stars shimmered above, unaware of the storm humanity was about to bring to the galaxy.